Welcome back to the Hoops Temple podcast. You all know me, Nathan Schwartz. Joining me from New Zealand, Dylan Williamson. Dylan, how's it going?
Very good, mate. Good to be here. Good morning to you. We haven't talked since really the free agency opened. And so we've got some big moves to discuss. The biggest of all is the signing of Vit Krejci returning to the Hawks.
If Atlanta was going to let him go, I was going to be just so sad unless he went to a team that I actually like, in which case I would have been much happier. There felt like there was a lot of good landing spots for it. He signed like a 4-year, $10 million deal. That's highway robbery. You lock him up for 4 years? Like, there may be a time in 4 years, if the media rights deal comes in as high as they're projecting, the minimum might be more than $2 million a year. Like, are they going to have to bump up his salary?
Yeah, and they we can do the math. We get 10% raises every year. They locked that in the new CBA to avoid huge cap spikes. So probably.
You
But
said
anyway,
we can do the math. That is a bold statement that I do not co-sign. I don't want to co-sign.
Sorry. One
10%
could do the
raises.
math, given the given the desire to do so. But yeah, I feel like Vit's one of those guys that the league kind of missed on. And also, this is the most Hoops Temple way to start the podcast, by the way, is a 5-minute discussion on Vit Krejci. But I do feel like
We
the
can
league
get to
missed
Poku
out
being
by.
without a team.
I feel like the league missed on certain guys, and Vit's one of them. Like, for him to take this deal, this is basically like the worst possible deal that you could sign. Other than it's got multiple years. And do we even know if those are all guaranteed? They might be non-guaranteed in the later years. So this might be a really bad deal for him. But like, he's a dude that has some. He can actually play NBA basketball, and they let it. No one got in against Atlanta.
Yeah, the NBA is, while they have a wonderful tracker of all of the deals that were made, who left, who came, they don't have a very good like descriptions. You click on the like link to what the deals actually were, at like the team's official, stance of like, oh, we're so happy to bring this guy back, and not the Woj nitty gritty details. But I don't think we want to talk Atlanta just yet. Maybe we'll get back to them. When we last spoke, we spoke in the wee early hours of free agency. There were bold proclamations made that Paul George will take his time. He'll talk to other teams. About an hour into free agency, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope signed with Orlando, and that dried up their cap space. Later that night, the Clippers were tweeting out, "Goodbye, Paul George. We're sorry we couldn't make it work." And that all but signified that he is going to Philadelphia, which has now done. The 76ers have made quite the splash this offseason. But is it wrong to say that, like, I just don't care?
You don't care?
No. Like, hear me out on this. The 76ers were a title contender last year. They were one of the best regular season teams until Embiid got hurt. What are they this year? They are a title contender. They will be one of the best teams as long as Embiid is healthy. Like, does this give them a little bit of wiggle room to survive and not fall down the regular season standing pecking order as much? Yes. But as long as Embiid is healthy, they were contenders. They still are contenders. And as long as Embiid is hurt, they were not contenders, and they're still not contenders. Like, I don't know that I should care that much. Do you care that much?
I mean, if you think about it, they've kind of swapped positions in the hierarchy of the league with the Clippers. They've basically just become Clippers East, where with the Clippers, they had like this pretty deep roster. They had Kawhi and Paul George and James Harden. The perspective was, if Kawhi is healthy, then they can make a push. And then Kawhi is never healthy. And now, now that's exactly what Philly have, where it's like, okay, we've got this, pretty decent team. They managed to fill out the roster very well.
Yep.
And they've got Paul George, they've got Embiid, they've got probably 2 top 10 players in the NBA, and 1/2 of them never healthy come the playoffs, and so they've just become Clippers East.
Yeah. So to speak to the filling out the rest of the roster, because they had basically everyone on either a non-guaranteed or expiring deal, so that way they could just go on a little, signing frenzy and try to get those 2 max slots. They brought back Kyle Lowry, KJ Martin, Tyrese Maxey, Kelly Oubre, and then they added Paul George, DeAndre Drummond, Eric Gordon, Caleb Martin, Jared McCain in the draft, Adam Bonna, the UCLA big who had some second round buzz. And they kept Ricky Council, who had like a nice spark last season. He's off to a nice summer league where he was knocked down in some big shots. I really like the team. They're probably, we'll get to the Knicks in a little bit, but I think at this point, what is the second best team in the East, or at least second favorite in the East?
Yeah, I'd say so. And when you go the route that Philadelphia did of going the free agency route, and then use all of your cap space to bring in a max player, normally you aren't able to fill out the rest of the roster very well. Like you're talking minimums, you're talking the room exception. Um, but to get Andre Drummond, where they now have a legitimate backup center, is probably one of the best, if not the best, backup center in the league. Especially if you compare to the starting center on his own team, where he was, probably better than Vucevic for a lot of the year. They now don't have that. Hopefully, won't have that issue where as soon as Embiid sits, or if he misses a game, they're just the worst team of all time. They get Eric Gordon on a minimum. People make fun of Daryl for like bringing in like all the old Rockets, but if you're talking minimums, you can't really do a lot better than Eric Gordon and Kyle Lowry. Kyle Lowry, it's quite impressive that they were able to bring him back because they had to renounce his rights to free up the cap space to bring in Paul George, and so for them to then be able to bring him back anyway, the only resource that they had available was the absolute dirt minimum. It wasn't even the 120% of the minimum that he could have got if they held on to his minimum cap hold. And then the same thing with Oubre to be able to bring him back. And Caleb Martin on a very good value deal. It does kind of seem like Daryl kind of fleeced a lot of the league with these moves where it's like, man, if that's all that this guy was getting, like why didn't a dozen other teams just outbid him for those guys?
Yeah. I mean, the Caleb Martin contract especially, and there was reports after it happened that Miami had offered him, I don't know if it was 20 million more or almost double it. But when he opted out of that and became a free agent, there wasn't the same cap mechanics to allow them to then make that same offer again. And he just bet on himself. The market was not there, which is disappointing. Like, he's a guy that I would have liked to have on the Lakers. He can get hot shooting. He is a solid defensive player. I think there's a chance
he was almost Eastern Conference Finals MVP.
Yeah.
I'm trying to figure out what won Eastern Conference Finals MVP.
I'm trying to figure out what I think their roster is going to be, or their starting lineup is going to be. I'm thinking, it will definitely be Tyrese Maxey, Paul George, and Embiid. Who would be the other 2 starters?
I feel like Martin's definitely one, so he's probably the 4. And then you've got a choice of, you can either go a little bit bigger and play Oubre as well. And then Paul George at 6'9" is your 2 guard, which he does like to do. He prefers to play to play smaller than, against smaller players than against bigger. Or you go Eric Gordon, who's, I mean, it depends how washed he is. Like he is pretty freaking old. But you would like to have at least like one guard defender. Like you don't want Paul George guarding guards all the time. I guess Martin can do that as well, and George can guard forwards, so maybe it works fine. But maybe just a lower usage guy and better defender and probably better 3-point shooter in Eric Gordon. And then you let Kelly Oubre cook against second units. Is probably the way
Okay.
that I'd lean.
Yeah, I'm thinking it's either Oubre or Martin off the bench, and you start Gordon just to give more of an offensive firepower. A guy that's going to handle the ball and be that self-creator off the bench with Oubre or Martin versus Gordon, who at this point is more of a catch and shoot type of player. But then like the rest of the bench lineup, you got Kyle Lowry, you've got Drummond, and I really think Ricky Council is going to be something this year, or as just a shooter, a couple of minutes a night. And then sneakily, I didn't even see it earlier. They got Justin Edwards, whom I watched Justin play a couple of games in Kentucky, and I really felt like he had low-end Torian Prince vibes of just like a defender who could move the ball. Not like he's gonna wow anyone or anything, but like this could be a solid NBA piece. Maybe like in the PJ Tucker, the defensive hustle mold, and so like I think that's a nice guy to have on your deep bench to bring out.
Yeah, and we'll have to see like how they finish out the roster. Obviously, they've only got minimums to work with, but they are a little bit shallow, which is often the case for a team that is going the cap space route and spending all their money on one player. They've got that starting five, and then either Oubre or Gordon or Martin, whoever doesn't start. They've got Andre Drummond as the backup five, and they've got Kyle Lowry as a pretty decent backup point guard. If
Yeah.
if any one of those players are injured, then it gets really bad. The classic NBA adage of just don't play bad players. As soon as you miss any of those guys from your top 8, you're putting in someone who's probably not an NBA player. And so we'll see if they are able to just bring in like competent NBA players on the minimum to round out the roster, or they've got to hope that, like you said, some of these young guys are able to contribute. At least when they're down guys.
Yeah, getting a bigger 3-4 or really a 4-5 would be good, because just if Embiid misses some time, then Drummond's your starting center. Your backup center behind him is Adam Banya or Boyan Bogdan. These big, the 41st pick, like that's not who you want to have playing big minutes. And as far as like another power forward on the roster, Caleb Martin's 6'5", so him playing up isn't going to be that much. Kelly Oubre is more of a small forward shooting guard, and Paul George will play the 4 at 6'8", but like it's just you don't have much size. You got a lot of smaller guards and wings. So I would certainly keep an eye on him, try to find a 4 somewhere.
Yeah, and we could see that come up on the defensive glass, where Embiid, despite his massive size and it does put up some good box score rebound numbers, his defensive rebound sort of team percentage is surprisingly not that good. He's not a guy that just like boxes everyone out and makes sure that his team gets possession. And if your power forward is 6'5", then the defensive glass could become a bit of an issue for them as well.
Yeah. All right. Well, from Philadelphia, I think it only makes sense to talk about the Knicks, because they're the other Eastern Conference team that made major moves. And I feel like when we recorded last, Isaiah Hartenstein's deal had just been announced, but the Mikal Bridges deal, I don't believe, had gone down. So the Knicks at this point have re-signed OG Anunoby, have re-signed Jalen Brunson to one of the most team-friendly deals I've seen in recent history. Brought in Mikal Bridges, brought in Kevin Bates-Diop, lost Bojan Bogdanovic, Alec Burks, Isaiah Hartenstein, and Jake Milton. How are we feeling?
Yeah, I mean, in the current NBA environment of the CBA making it very hard to build sustainable, dominant teams, we have sort of entered an era of the healthiest team that's good enough. And filling out the roster the way that they have, adding Bridges, bringing back Anunoby, who was hurt in the playoffs, and you'd imagine will definitely be better this year. Gives them that floor, that sort of minimum floor of if you've got most of your guys, then you've got a chance against anyone in the East, or anyone in the finals. And in the current NBA environment of healthiest team that's just good enough, that's sort of what you should be shooting for. Jalen Brunson played like a top 10 player in the league through a lot of stretches last year. And so if you've got a top 10 player, you've got the best defensive wing pairing in the NBA, as long as Mikal Bridges decides to play defense again. And you've got still rim protection from Mitchell Robinson. Julius Randle's still on this roster, which doesn't get talked about. He can still... Was he an all-star last year? And so, yeah, like the point of, I guess, is that they've got a potential top 10 player. They've got a lot of really good starting players. They've got some depth. They're going to hit that floor of being good enough if they're healthy.
I'm really interested to see if Tibbs embraces using Randall as a small ball 5. If he doesn't, this is going to be fair. I know he won't, but I would, like, you don't have... He's going to have two
Jericho Sims on the roster?
Jericho Sims is on the roster, but he signed Taj Gibson off the Trap Heat and played him. Taj has been signed by Charlotte, so he can't go get Taj again. Mitchell Robinson, will get hurt and miss 15 games at some point. Like that just happens every year. It's not to be unexpected. He doesn't like playing Jericho Sims a ton. Jericho, he makes a lot of mistakes, but I do think he has, NBA level athleticism that could be coached into being something good. We just haven't seen it yet. So like your options really are to play Randall as a small ball 5. I think that will be really interesting to have a lineup of Brunson, Dante DiVincenzo out there for spacing, McHale, OG, and Randall. That, I think you have enough defensive capabilities out there to kind of cover up Randall as not the greatest rim protector, but also that's going to be a really good offensive team. I don't know that I Tibbs to make the move, but I want to see it.
Yeah, no, you've come up with a very creative, modern way to succeed in basketball, and it will absolutely not occur because Tom Thibodeau is the coach and he refuses to play a single minute without a rim protector.
Okay.
Precious Achiuwa is still a free agent. He could be back as well to give them the sort of 3 rotation caliber centers, and they hope that you get at least 2 of those healthy at any one time.
I said in the draft that Precious Achiuwa will be better than James Wiseman. The two, of course, played together at Memphis until Wiseman decided he didn't want to play, and I said that he was, being a scaredy cat because Precious was going to be better than him.
It's a great call.
I will take my... But I'd rather... I mean, maybe you bring him back and you still have him there for depth. The other Knicks piece, this is my Bray James. Ariel Hakapori. Have you heard that name before?
No. Who is that? Who is Ariel Hakapori?
So Ariel Hakapori, I believe he was like the 58th draft pick. I forget with some of the picks forfeited, whatnot, weird things. But he was looking at coming out to the NBA a few years ago, and he was like the 17 and under MVP for FIBA competitions, and he had a lot of these like age 15, age 17, just like super high marks. I want you to picture Joel Embiid with worse injury history.
He played in Melbourne last year. I should have heard of him. Maybe he didn't play. He was on the roster and didn't play.
No. So I've watched this film just because he was supposed to come out several drafts ago. When he has it going, the man is a beast. He is a monster. He is huge and big and like can throw his body around the way you want Embiid to do it. But the man has like ankles of glass, knees of glass. So the fact that he finally came to the NBA, I'm not really holding my breath for it. But there is some like teenage footage of the 17, 18, 16-year-old footage where he is phenomenal. And so I'm very nervous about his career being in Tibbs' hands, but I also kind of want to see it. I'm hoping he can make the roster and actually play some games because I've been a big fan. He's a guy that I several years back thought, you know what? Why not throw a pick at him when he was mocked the second round? I was like, I'd throw a late, teens, early 20s pick at him just because I think the upside had a chance. And now with injuries, I don't think the upside has a chance, but I really like the flashes I've seen from him when healthy.
Right, everyone. So Nate's big projected player is a guy that tore his Achilles a year and a half ago. 7-footer.
That's like third Achilles. That's like the injury history of this guy is so bad. It's but I like it.
Isn't the best thing about the Knicks is that they've managed to become very likable? Like not a team that historically a neutral fan would root for. They've still got James Dolan, who's one of the most hated owners in the NBA. And they've just managed to put together like all the most likable players in the NBA somehow onto one roster.
I do think that makes a big difference. I mean, why does anyone listen to a podcast? You listen to a podcast either because it's informative and you're going to learn something new, or because it's just great, like friends hanging out, having a good time. And the Knicks, I don't know how much new things I'm learning, but every time I see one of those clips where these guys are just hanging out, having a great time, I love it. And I love Josh Hart just like ragging on random people in the NBA. Let's say Alvarado won with like the Rising Stars MVP and like got, I don't know, it was like 100,000 or something. It's like donated to charity or to this cause. And Josh Hart's like, man, buy yourself some diamonds. It's just like a funny dude. I like him a lot.
Yeah, no,
So
it's an impressive feat for a big market team with a douchebag owner to become incredibly likable among neutral fans. Like when I was when the Clippers briefly flirted with Miles Bridges, and I was like, if they actually do this, like I'm not going to be able to support this team. Like I can't watch every game and be like, yeah, let's go Miles Bridges. Like if they had pulled it off, like I'm out. Like there's just no way I could have gone on with that. So I was thinking, like, which teams would I support? And sometimes there's different factors that come into play, but in terms of just my heart, who would my heart most want to see win? It's probably the Knicks, and that's a wild place to be at.
I think, but they've gotten there. So now the real question is, where do you rank them in the tiers of the East? Are they a solid top tier contender? Have they leapfrogged Milwaukee to you? What are your odds of them coming out of the East?
I'd say they're the second favorite. I think there's the Celtics alone in their own tier, and then it's Sixers, Knicks, Bucks, in a tier 2, where like the healthiest team might win. I might even put the Bucks a tier lower than that. They were rough a lot of last year, and continue to get worse / not improve their roster whatsoever. So maybe they'd even be like a tier 2B behind behind the Knicks. And then if you consider as well that what's the likelihood that Embiid is healthy come playoff time? Probably like 50-50. And so that almost like separates the Knicks out again into their own clear second most likely to come out of the East. And I think they match up pretty well with the Celtics as well.
They do match up well. I think at this point, it hurts me to say it, but I think you're right on them better than the Bucks. The Bucks brought in Taurean Prince and DeLon Wright. These are not needle moves. They still haven't re-signed Patrick Beverley. I'm seeing now that he's talking about going to Europe. Good riddance. Malik Beasley left to the Pistons. I'm not crying any tears, but I really am hoping that the Bucks just with another offseason convert having Doc there. Not that Doc is a great X's coach. He makes fun of himself for not being a good X's and O's coach in the TO Clipped, which Doc executively produces. So I'm guessing he signed off on that note and being like, you know, so what he thinks his legacy will be. And he's like, oh, I'd like to say, as a players coach, the guys listen to me. I'm a leader, not a great X's and O's coach. And you're like, yeah, no fucking duh, Doc.
I love how he's like, as an NBA coach, not a great coach, but I'm a great civil rights leader.
Oh yeah, I'm a good person.
Not great at coaching basketball games, but I'm a good dude.
Dude, I'm just saying. I think you need to watch it. It is both not great and it is peak cinema. It is
Look,
terrible.
It just looks
and
so
fantastic.
cringe, man.
It is. It is.
I can't deal with cringe. Cringe physically pains me.
My wife watched it with me, and she compared it to Selling Sunset and reality TV.
Oh my god!
It's 6 episodes. It's less than 6 hours. Do it. Talk to me about it. I don't think you'll regret it, but you may hate your life.
Will I hate my life more than their casting choices?
No. All right, so that's Knicks and 76ers. You've got them above Philly. I think I have them below Philly in my pecking order of the East. Where do you want to go next?
Do you want to talk about? I guess I was going to say, do you want to talk about Denver because they coming out of last season, well, the previous as a champion, going into last season as the Western Conference favorite, and then getting bounced, and then also getting worse, not improving their roster. But I feel like the last podcast we did, I spent plenty of time begging on them for, cheaping out, saving a few bucks at the cost of being a real contender. And so looking at the West, maybe that's the point is Denver, I think, have clearly dropped out of favorite status. To you, where are they among the Western Conference contenders? Because that roster's kind of rough. Outside of the top 4 players.
I think they're a solid third in the West for me right now. And I guess that doesn't mean any of State, who is 1 and 2. 1, I believe, will be OKC, and 2, I believe, will be Minnesota. I think Denver is in that 3-4 tier, then Dallas. And it's just, Jokic is really good. The young guys, if they play all season, maybe they will be better. Because one of his things is that he doesn't want to play the young guys. He favors the vets very heavily. But if they had just re-signed Pope, and if they had just kept Reggie Jackson and then brought in Dario Saric like they actually did, they're still a favorite in my mind. They solved their hole of needing a backup big man who can play a style Jokic. No, so Dario's not as good, but you run a lot of the same sets. You don't have to have like a bench offense versus a starting offense. You have a big man who can play, make, pass, a little from the prayer. I think they would have been fine. but instead they're just bleeding depth to the point where they're going to start Peyton Watson? Peyton can't shoot. You're giving up a
or Christian
ton.
Brown, and then same problem.
Yeah. So didn't Holiday go somewhere? I feel like I saw Holiday, but that might have been one of the other Holiday brothers. It just okay. It was Aaron Holiday re-signed with Houston. The other Holiday, it may still be there. It just I don't love it. I've heard the rumor that they're interested in Chris Paul, or not Chris Paul, Russell Westbrook. If you get Russ to backfill Reggie Jackson, great. You've backfilled Reggie Jackson. You still have lost a starter, and yeah, I just don't see them being quite as definitively good.
Yeah. My initial instinct was like, this is not the favorite. They're not better than the Thunder, not better than the Wolves. Maybe not even better than the Mavs, which was them fourth in the West.
Mm-hmm.
But in saying that, they won 57 games last year. They were fourth in the league in net rating. Is KCP worth 7 wins, which is the difference between them and Dallas? Although certainly Dallas will get better, but maybe am I overrating the loss of KCP?
I would say in the vacuum, no. If they replace him with someone, like looking at some of the other teams that have made moves, I'm not too teared up about the Warriors giving up Chris Paul, Dario Saric, and Klay Thompson. Are all things who I think are more impressive names than what they're bringing, and like bringing back in Kyle Anderson, Bud Hield, and Anthony Melton. I feel like getting close to the same production. Denver just lost KCP. They didn't backfill him with anything. They don't have, it's not like you lost him and replacing him with this one level guy. You lost him and you nothing. So, I think regular wise, 57 is going to be hard to hit again. Playoff wise, KCP was hurt and it showed. Anthony Edwards was cooking him. KCP was not the level of defender that I think you need last season. I was going to say that was injury. I was willing to chalk that up to injury. But if Denver feels it's something more than that, maybe they're looking back over more game film, then maybe this makes sense. But still, just to lose him for nothing is really where I'm struggling to wrap my head around.
And yeah, maybe it does just come down to Nikola Jokic is the best basketball player in the world, and you've got him. He will get you to the point of having a good offense. We even saw it. That not to base my entire 82 game plus playoff NBA season on a non-contest Olympic game, but we saw it in the Serbia game against France, where Jokic is really the only really high-level offensive player on the team. I mean, I guess I got Bogdanovic and Vasilij Micic, but not a lot, not great floor spacing. And then you go up against France, who has Gobert and Wembanyama, the two best rim protectors in the world, and no defensive 3-second rule. And Jokic was still able to dominate those guys. Like, he just has a way of getting his team to put the ball in the hoop. And, maybe that's, Christian Brown's going to have the most open shots that he's ever shot in his entire life. And maybe that's enough that Jokic is just going to feed him on a silver platter, wide open jump shots or easy cuts to the hoop, and just having Jokic is still enough to just get you to a 50-win team.
Yeah, I mean that's certainly possible. He got a team that was starting Facundo Campazzo there. No disrespect to Facundo, I freaking love him, and I still think about the guy that I bumped into wearing a Campazzo Argentina jersey at Disney, and like that was a great moment and of like respect for him. But it just you're losing guys I trust in the playoff series. We looked at Philly and we're like, all right, there are 8 guys that I trust in the playoffs. There are now trust in Denver in a playoff series. So I if we're like doing cross comparisons, I think Boston is in a tier on their own at this point. In win health. I think that we have a second tier of Embiid or the Knicks and the 76ers. And I'd slot Denver and closer to Milwaukee than I would the other 2 teams. Just we know what the Stars can do, but the lack of depth I think really hurt. And so what you want to call it, a 2B or a tier 3, I think that's where I'm at with the Nuggets.
Yeah, no, I'd say so. Where do you want to go to next?
So I want to go to Dallas, and maybe not spend a ton of time with Dallas, but Dallas made some moves, and I'm not entirely sure that they got better. And maybe, I'm going to be honest with you, I'm very just apathetic about this offseason. Like, I know there's some years where I'm like really excited. I want to see all these guys play out, but Dallas Green, who valuable and hustle moments. Tim Hardaway Jr., who I know you're out on. There was a lot of Luka was hurt. Hardaway came to play. Hardaway had some really big moments being like the second guy, and he fell out in the playoffs. But I know that Clay has that self-creation ability, and then Jones is a really good defensive piece. They added Klay Thompson, who's going to give them more spacing and more consistent catch and shoot threes than anyone else. They added Najee Marshall, who I love his defense. I hate his offense. I hate him when he tries to do things. I feel like it goes wrong for the Pelicans all the time. And then Quentin Grimes, who I like. I think he has potential. I don't think he's ready. I liked him with the Pistons, where he could maybe develop into something. But do you see this Dallas team as moving up into solid contender status, or still kind of in dark horse status?
Yeah, no, I disagree with you. I do think that they moved up a tier. They were a lot better in the second half of the season. And so if you take that as their baseline after they made those roster moves, they made rotation moves such as not playing Tim Hardaway Jr. anymore. And then they lost those 3 guys in Josh Green, Tim Hardaway, and Derek Jones. You know, a hustle guy, a bomber, and a 3-and-D guy, and replaced them with guys who, in totality, fill those roles and are better. Like you said that, Tim Hardaway saved them a lot when Luka was out, or I think he even had one good playoff game after they totally took him out of the rotation because he was awful. Like Klay Thompson can get hot. There's going to be games where Luka's out and Klay Thompson is just going to bang threes. Quentin Grimes is, I guess, kind of similar to Josh Green in that he, well, maybe even more to Derek Jones, where he's just a solid defender, will spot up and hit threes. Doesn't have Jones's athleticism defensively or in transition.
If Grimes was a solid defender, he'd still be on Knicks. The man, Tibbs fell out of love with the man, and I think he can be. I could grow it. Got a good length for it. He's just not there yet. And so, like, I look at these moves, a lot of them are trading out defense for offense. Clay, a catch and shoot guy, I think he amplifies Luka and Tim Hardaway Jr. or Luka and Kyrie out there. He's going to amplify it. But Tim was able to create a dribble in a way I don't think Clay can do at this point in his career, just movement wise. So that's where I'm saying Tim was able to help weather some injuries and missed time in a way that I don't think Clay will be able to.
Yeah, fair enough. And like some of that could be filled by just roster improvements. Like Jaden Hardy played in the playoffs last year. Maybe he's got another step forward as like a bench creator. And then you get Najee Marshall, who's gonna play harder than probably anyone else on the Mavs. And we'll bust out a grab and go from time to time, and make you go insane because why is Najee Marshall running the fast break? But sometimes it works out, and like he can help with their tempo. He pushes the ball. He can defend. He can kind of shoot. I think it's a really good pickup for them. I think that they had a really good offseason, and building on where they were late last season versus last season on the whole, I think that they probably have supplanted Denver in the West's hierarchy.
They certainly do have better depth. If we just do a projected starting lineup of P. Luka, PJ Washington, and I'm gonna say, yeah, that's very lovely. Then you have a reserve core of Daniel Gafford, Grimes, Dwight Powell, hate him or love him, Maxi Kleber, Dante Exum, Jaden Hardy. That's 11 guys that, you know, maybe you don't fully trust them all in the playoffs. I know Mavs fans in my life are screaming, don't trust Dwight Powell, but if Powell was shooting center, and Najee Marshall, that's 12 guys who can play NBA minutes, and that's, you know, not counting some of the younger guys, some of the rookies that they've drafted. We'll see if any of them can become anything. If
it's the Omax Prosper season.
Yeah. I think that maybe they saw Denver, maybe they're third, but I think they're also a lot more attackable, that you can target having Clay and Luka and Washington out there. Washington does have some defensive lapses at times, but maybe that's all just a moot point if you always have the rim protection of Gafford or Lively. So, you know.
Yeah, no, probably you're probably right in that the way that they have taken a step back, even if I don't think that they have, as a whole, is that having Klay Thompson in your starting lineup makes your defense a lot harder to scheme. Where Derrick Jones Jr. could defend point of attack, he could defend on the wing. Klay Thompson at this point in his career can't do either of those. He can defend some fours, and so maybe they even go to like. I guess you wouldn't want to start Clay at 4.
You might bring
but
Najee.
What was that? Sorry.
You could Clay off the bench and start Najee Marshall.
With everything that we know about Klay Thompson, I doubt he would accept a bench role. I'm sure that if they tell him that he's coming off the bench, he's going to be like, oh, "Fuck you guys."
Well, that's why you don't tell him that, but you just do it.
You just gaslight him. You're like, "Nah, Clay, this is still just the warm ups. This is just shoot around. We'll put you in once the actual game starts. Don't worry about it. This isn't the real game. This is just a warm up against the opposition with the scoreboard on."
Yeah, exactly.
But you can always close different to how you start. And so if the matchup demands, like if you've got just a really good, quick point guard, maybe you do move Clay to the 4 or move him to the bench, and you can put in Dante Exum to guard the ball. They do have some options of different closing units, even if I think that the starting unit will probably be better offensively and worse defensively.
Mm-hmm. All right. Where do you want to go next?
Do you want to talk about the state of what you expect from the Pacific, where you've got you've got these 5 teams who their projections are gonna, I think, vary a lot, in terms of just like, NBA fan, what they're expecting out of these 5 teams. So I'd be interested to see where you're at on all 5 of those teams. Do you think they're all playoff contenders? Do you think any of them are like fringe championship contenders? Do you think we've got 5 play-in contenders? Where are you at on these guys?
So I think there's still a lot to be shaken out in the West. But right now, if you think of the top four as being in whatever order you choose, Oklahoma, Minnesota, Denver, and Dallas. That's 4 playoff spots. I do think Memphis takes a 5th one. I don't think that you can pencil them in to be as good as they were 2 years ago. There has been a lot of roster turnover. They've
Yeah, they don't
lost
have Steven Adams anymore.
Dylan Brooks. They've lost a lot of guys. Steven Adams, Dylan Brooks, Tyus Jones, D'Anthony Melton was a big part of that team. Like, their whole reserve core. Now, Bain has gotten better. Jaren Jackson Jr. is there, but it's a different team. But I do think they make the 5th playoff spot, most likely. So then the 6th spot, and maybe it's not 5, 6. These order can change, but 6th spot, I'm still waiting to see what the Pelicans do. I think they've got another move in them. But I think the whole Pacific Division, maybe not the whole, well, there's only 4 teams that make the play-in, but I think the entire play-in could be Pacific Division teams. The best of whom right now, I will just say, I believe to be the Sacramento Kings. They would be my favorite to actually make playoffs, not play-in. But I do think the other 4 all have a good shot of ending up in the play-in. I'm probably higher on the Clippers than a lot of people will still. I feel like they have.
But you're not higher than me.
I know, but you're a Clippers fan. I feel like I'm higher than the general average. But just to talk about the Kings. The Kings re-signed Malik Monk on a good deal. They brought back Alex Len. They added DeMar, Jalen McDaniels, and Jordan McLaughlin. McLaughlin's not much. Vezenkov was unhappy. I like this opening up some more minutes for Trey Lyles and his spacing. I think DeMar, having him out there kind of gives you a guy that you could say, all right, we're going to ISO DeMar and let the offense ride for a little bit, that I don't think they had previously. You get another year of development from Murray. I know his sophomore progression wasn't what everyone hoped for, but he is improving and still. Maybe we get more of a junior or jump, but I think that they have a really strong offensive team, and their defense was middle of the pack. I think it was slightly better. I think it was like 13th last year. I don't think that falls below 20th. So I think if you're looking at a team that could be a top 3 to 5 offense and about an average defense, you're probably still in good shape.
I think I'm going to end up, like always, a lot lower on the Kings. I think they're probably still the worst team in the division. The big thing that they're going to argue for, like you just did, is that the offense is going to be a lot better. But I think they're going to run into the math problem where they've got Fox, who's a predominantly inside the arc scorer. They've got Keon Ellis, who's a really good rim finisher, but not a great shooter. Murray can get threes. DeRozan never takes any threes. Sabonis is another 3-point shooter. They're going to, lead the league in mid-range field goal percentage and have a mediocre offense because they don't get up enough threes.
I thought Keon Ellis was a good 3-point shooter. Yeah, he's almost 42% from deep last year.
On like what? Like 2 attempts a game?
3, but limited minutes. If Herter's shot comes back.
Sorry, carry on.
No, I mean, Herter was in a bit of a shooting slump last year. I believe he was also dealing with an injury. If Herter's hitting threes like he was 2 years ago, Murray is a decent 3-point shooter, or Keon Ellis, and then Trey Lyles. So I feel like that's 4 solid shooters. If you stagger and keep 3 of them out there with 2 of the more mid-rangey offensive stars, whether that's Sabonis, DeRozan, or Fox, I think that the offense could be really good. But I do believe that they are going to be in a cluster with the other Pacific teams. I don't think that they're a runaway favorite, which maybe you want to be after you're making the DeMar DeRozan trade.
Yeah, man, we're gonna disagree so much on the Pacific. I feel like you've got the Kings number 1.
Mm-hmm.
I've got Phoenix number 1. where are you at on Phoenix?
I'd say they're number 2. I mean,
Okay.
the Bradley Beal injury, I believe, is better. Like they got to have more health than they had last season because they had like no health, no good luck in health last year. They brought back Royce O'Neal. They added Monte Morris, who is a serviceable point guard. Mason Plumlee is now a solid big. Like, they're going to be fine. I think they actually, yeah. If the Pelicans don't make another move and or just have their usual bad luck and health, I would say it's the Kings and the Suns that get the 5th and 6th seed, and the rest of the Pacific is all in the play-in.
Man, that's crazy. I'm so low on Sacramento compared to you. Looking at them last year, they had a plus. And maybe we need Aaron on here to defend them to add the context that maybe I don't appreciate as not a King super fan. But plus 0.8 net rating, 19th in the league, 46 wins with 3.1 wins more than expected. You could say that's luck. You could say that's Malik Monk being a clutch demon. But 14th on offense, 18th on defense. We just said that the defense probably slips a little bit. Let's say it's 20th. The offense improves a bit. I mean, I don't think it's going to get inside the top 10. And so a comparable team, Atlanta were 11th on offense and 26th on defense. They probably clear that by a bit. I guess best case scenario. Yeah, it's not really a good comparable team. Atlanta's probably the closest, and they won 36 games last year.
I get that they're probably the closest, but I don't think that's the closest. Like, I don't think that's a good comparable if you're saying like, hey, they're going to be the 11th best offense. This team is going to be a very good offense. And
Okay,
if Herter's shooting bounces back, like that was the big problem last season, was that Herter was just in a horrid shooting slump, couldn't hit anything. I mean, the guy was 40% last year and is now like 30% or 36%. What was he, 42 to 36? That's a huge drop off in his shooting. And if that comes back, or even just up a little bit, 40 to, I think they'll be fine. I think they'll be able to win regular season games. I don't give them much hope of making it out of the first round, but I think they've got 2 of the top 20 players in the league in Sabonis and Fox, maybe 2 of the top 25.
Hey, we'll have to do our season rankings and we'll see where it shakes out.
True.
Do the Clippers not have 2 of the top 25 players in the league?
I would take both Fox and Sabonis over James Harden.
Okay. Most people would probably agree with you.
Now you could say the Lakers have you could say the Lakers have 2 of the top 25. You could say the Suns have 2 of the top 25. You could not say the Warriors have 2 of the top 25. But I really don't hate the Warriors offseason. I mean, Clay was rough defensively. The legacy kind of outlived the production, and I think that's a dangerous spot to be in, where you owe this man so much for past performances that he gets the nod, he gets the minutes, he gets the benefit of the doubt in situations
and the money
that
affects the receiver roster building.
Yeah, but now all right. Field at this point is a better shooter than Clay, probably even worse defender. Play him or don't play him. If you need shooting, you can play him. If you don't need it, it's not like you're not better defender. He did struggle shooting last year, but I think the team has good options, and I don't think they're going to be a worse team than they were this past season. I think if anything, they're going to be the same or slightly improved.
Do you want to get into some animosity? Do you want to tell me who you have between the Clippers and the Lakers as the better team?
Whoever stays healthy, and that like if you promise at this point, I'm going to say the Lakers because I trust LeBron to be healthier than Kawhi. That just feels like a safer gamble. But LeBron and Davis are, I mean, Davis isn't old, but Davis is Davis for a reason. And LeBron's now really old. At some point, there's a reason why people always say at some point Father Time's undefeated. I might say it for another 2 or 3 years, but eventually LeBron will lose the battle to Father Time. And LeBron James Jr. is not the same. So, you know,
I guess it's not good because you get some shortened seasons. But looking at his LA tenure, acknowledging that some of those seasons are going to be shorter. 50 games, 67, 45, 56, 55, 71. Like last year was the only year where he played most of a full schedule. Now I'm sure Kawhi's probably worse than that.
Yeah. Oh yeah. But you know, if LeBron and Davis are there is a floor on the Lakers that is relatively high. They will not be below 500 if those guys play 70 games each. The Max Christie signing was kind of laughed at. The Lakers just need a Max Christie type player. Like he is a 6'6" wing who hits threes and plays defense. It was a fine deal. I think it's like $8 million a year for 4 years. Kind of similar to the Vit Crinchy deal. I'd probably rather have Vit, especially at his number, but you know.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, if it's Torian Prince out for Max Christie, that's probably a win. And the Lakers are probably the team that one of these teams that do have either some more moves to make or will end up just getting some of these remaining free agents. Like, you know, for whatever reason, even though it never turns out, guys do still go to the Lakers on minimums to try to, you know, rebuild their career or whatever. You know, Precious Achua is still out there. Tyus Jones, I think, is still available. Gary Trent Jr. Like the Lakers can offer these guys minutes, and a big market.
Well, so with the LeBron signing, they are like 450,000 below the second apron. So if they sign a minimum guy, they go above the apron.
How many roster spots do they have?
15. They got 15 contracts, 15 guaranteed. Yeah.
God damn. It's all these player options screwed them. I forgot they've got like D'Lo opted in against their will, freaking Christian Wood and Cam Reddish and all these guys that they gave player options to that then picked it up, won't play and are taking up roster spots.
I'm going to be sitting here trying to convince you that Cam Reddish has really figured out defense at some point this season.
He had stretches.
He had stretches. Jackson Hayes had stretches. Dear God, if I ever see the Hayes Wood Davis lineup again, I'm gonna just turn the TV off immediately because that's when you know it's gone horribly wrong.
If there's any Christian Wood lineup,
some of the pieces aren't bad. We got Rui back. Oh, so disappointing. You know, the Lakers line, as a Lakers fan, I feel compelled to deliver this line, is last year we were missing Jared Vanderbilt. And it's such an insulated line because it implies that no one else was missing someone. But Vanderbilt does really help the Lakers. The Lakers are a team of a lot of specialists due to, you know, the high salaries of LeBron and Davis. You don't have guys who do lots of things. You've got guys that do one or two things good. And Vanderbilt was the best defender, best point of attack defender, secondary rim protection, switchable for every different thing. Like Vando is hugely important to the Lakers. in a way that he would not be on a lot of other teams. And I think getting him back will play a decent, will have a decent impact if he's able to play.
Yeah, no, you sort of look at this roster, and outside of Anthony Davis, who I don't think is as dominant as he was at his peak, you struggle to really find a lot of plus defenders who do also have overall like NBA playability. Like Max Christie's a pretty good defender.
Hmm.
Cam Reddish can defend at times. Um, Bronny is supposed to be, a guy with good defensive instincts. Um, but like if that's how deep you're digging to find a guy that can defend on the ball, or let alone, defend a wing, it's you're not in good shape. And so Vando does become very important for them. And some of their best was it the previous season that some of their best lineups were using Vando.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the Vando, Rui, LeBron, Reeves, and Davis 5-man unit, or sub out one of those guys with D'Lo. Those 6 guys have put together some decent 5-man units at
Yeah.
times. There's
I'll
still a lot of
give you their
variance in their play, but
22-23 season, the best Lakers lineup that played at least 100 non-garbage time possessions was Russell, Reeves, LeBron, Vando, and Davis, who were plus 22, which is absurd.
see, I mean, he should be this important. You should have a better constructed roster where he is not this important, but he really is. Getting Dalton Connect, I believe, will play decent minutes this year. I feel like this is going to be one of the better shooting Lakers team between him, Christie getting more minutes. If Gabe Vincent can not be hurt all year and maybe be something, I don't have much faith in that, but like yeah, I'm taking the Lakers over the Clippers in the abstract. But if we just read through the Clippers moves, I do think they recovered okay. I mean, losing Paul George is a big setback, but post the James Harden trade, pre-Harden trade, they weren't really popping off. Post-Harden trade for the first 11 games, they were not good. And then they figured something out. Having that offseason together, I think they will be still be decent. They also go out and get Mo Bamba, bring back Nick Batum, add Derek Jones Jr., and add Kevin Porter Jr., who not happy to see him in the league. He does have some talent, but you now have Batum and Jones as defensive guys who can rebound, who will play, and who will hustle. And that is exactly what Paul George said the Clippers were missing. So I like them on this team.
Yeah, and as we say with every season, I think the Clippers do still have championship upside if Kawhi Leonard's healthy because he's that good. When you've got the guy that can be the best player in any given game, you've got a chance in any game. And so if they can stay healthy, they've got a deep team. They've got 10 guys who can play NBA basketball and at least 8 guys who can play playoff basketball. Um, if Kawhi's healthy, I think they're right there. Is that likely? Probably less likely than it is to occur. And then the other difficulty becomes: are they able to win games when Kawhi is out in the regular season? Um, Paul George had a very good regular season last year, even though he did have a awful playoffs as always. And so, like, are they like a high, like a 50 win pace with Kawhi playing, but then he misses 20 games, and then they're a 30 win pace without him? Um, well, we'll have to see.
Yeah, I do think that their floor is definitely much lower not having Paul George there. You do speak to the depth. If we assume a starting lineup of Harden Harden, Kawhi, Zubac. I'm going to go ahead and toss Derek Jones Jr. in there, and Terrence Mann feels fairly likely.
Yeah,
Off the
that's what
bench,
it'll be. Yeah,
at the moment, you still have Russell Westbrook. Talk is they're going to try to move him, but you got Russ, Kevin Porter Jr., or Norm Powell, Nick Batum, like PJ Tucker. You don't have much size. Losing Plumlee and Daniel Tice is interesting. So
Mo Bamba's going to have to be able to play, which isn't a guarantee.
no.
At least the one of the good things that Zubac's never misses games, so he's never going to have to be a starter. He's always going to be a bench guy. But yeah.
And like right now, there are still 2 to 3 sizable moves that could still be made. We messaged about this beforehand, but Lauri Markkanen's going to go somewhere. Just more
Maybe.
likely than not. Yeah, maybe. He's got a contract extension deadline as of August 8th, where if he signs the contract extension after that date, he's then no longer eligible to be traded this season. So just a date to keep an eye out for. The Pelicans still trying to figure out what they're doing with Brandon Ingram. His camp seems to be talking to other teams to figure out what extensions could be. I think the Ingram for Jared Allen swap has been discussed to death at this point, just across different circles, but it makes sense. And then Jared Allen is the other potential guy who could move and shake things up. And do we want to talk Pelicans? Because the Pelicans did make a move since we last talked. And bringing in DeJounte Murray.
Yep.
We've talked about 10 Western Conference teams already. We haven't even discussed the Rockets and their potential quest to be a playoff team. How are we feeling about the Pelicans?
It's very hard to make a projection or to give analysis on them because this does very much feel like an incomplete roster. At the moment, their starting center is Daniel Tice, who was like a fringe bench player for us last year, like not a guaranteed NBA player. And at the moment, he's the best center. And so you have to assume that they're going to do something to bring in a center. If they don't, I mean, do you just go screw defense and start Zion at the 5? Like, just put your 5 best players out there? If the alternative is Daniel Tice, like...
I think if that's where you end up, I nominate pulling CJ McCollum from the starting lineup and having him go to the bench, and trying to run something more traditional off the bench. But if you start DeJounte Murray at the 1, then you can go Herb, Ingram, Trey, and Zion, and have this kind of switch happy, we believed 2007 Warriors back when Baron Davis and was it Al Harrington, Steven Jackson, like that team. It's a similarly sized team. I think that would be just disastrous in certain games. Like they will have a game that they lose by 40, but could be really fun in others and could really disrupt the pace.
I think it's like a top 5 offense, bottom 5 defense kind of lineup, which is probably a playing team.
And this is why I don't think the Kings defense will be that bad, is there will be some really horrendous defenses out there. Like, you think Charlotte's going to be a good defense? No, they're not. There's going to be some horrendous defenses out there. But can I have a few moments to just talk Pistons, or do you have more Pelicans thoughts?
No. Like I said, I think it's hard to predict the Pelicans because you have to assume that that they're not done.
Yeah, they're TBD. Rockets, I think, would easily cruise to a playoff spot in the East, but this is the West we're talking about. This is the show.
Yeah.
The Pistons. What is your current win projection for the Pistons? I need to know how high and how hot I need to come in on these guys.
let's say 25 feels about right.
I was really hoping you were going to say something even lower, and I'd be like, double it, but I'm not going to say double it to 25.
They're winning 50 games.
Okay,
Detroit
so
Pistons are going to win 50 games. Okay.
with how bad they were, anything they did was going to be an improvement over last season's team. But I think they made the right moves and got the right pieces out there. Paul Reed, just a beef stew upgrade coming off the bench. I also think this is going to be like the best chance to see what Paul Reed really is. He's going to get more minutes here than he was ever going to get behind Embiid. But then the other pieces: Tobias Harris, Tim Hardaway Jr., Malik Beasley. No players that I really like, but Tim Hardaway Jr. and Harris can play with the ball in their hands and take some pressure off of Asar Thompson and Ron Holland to like need to be shooters right away or need to do things with the ball. They can kind of be slashers, they can be cutters. It just is going to open up the offense more. Simone Fontecchio coming back as a quick connective piece who also shoots. I feel like the last year's Pistons team had one good shooter in Bogdanovich, and this year's team has like 3 to 4 guys that you don't necessarily want to leave open for catch and shoots all the time.
It is also like 3 to 4 guys that just might not play because they go to the young guys instead.
Yeah, I think, I mean, maybe Malik Beasley falls out of the rotation, but just to have a bench sniper. I mean, he was starting for the Bucks last year, the title contending Bucks. Give me a break, but you know, the Pistons have a lot of non-shooters and a lot of guys who do like all of the little things well. You know, that's Asar Thompson's whole bit, is that he's going to be a great defender. He can, cut off ball, but he's not the most on ball, not the most shooty, not the most offensive happy guy. So you got a couple of guys in Harris and Hardaway that are going to be offensive happy and are going to do things and can allow him to grow into that role more naturally as opposed to being asked to do too much too early.
So what's the starting lineup for these guys?
I want to bring Tim Hardaway Jr. off the bench.
Yeah, I guess the hard thing for them becomes, are you trying to just win as many games as possible, or are you still trying to develop? Because if you're still trying to develop, then you probably start Asar Thompson. If you are just trying to win games, then you probably start Malik Beasley instead.
I think you start Cade, and then you start one of Ivy or Asar or Ron Holland, one of those guys that you want to try to develop with Simone and Tobias Harris and then Jalen Duren. So that way you can balance spacing and not like trying to cluster all the young guys together and just throw them out there to get eaten alive by the Wolves, because that was the big problem with last year's team, is you were playing Cade and Killian and Asar and Beef Stew, and it just, the guys didn't have spacing, didn't have compatibility, and it was just like, we're going to get you guys minutes and see how it goes. It's like, this was not a good plan. This was not, these pieces do not fit together well. So I think that you try to balance giving the young guys a lot of minutes while trying to set them up for success and keeping them with pieces that can space or connect and do the other things that they don't do great.
I think I would have liked Tyus Jones better for these guys than Malik Beasley. Well, they've already got Tim Hardaway Jr. to like be a guy who can shoot. I don't like this idea that Cade's the point guard. Like, put him in a position where like his above average passing skills for a wing are above average passing skills for a wing and not below average passing skills for a point guard. And like Ivy's not a real point guard. Asar's not a real point guard. So I would have liked, I think that they would have really benefited. In the same way that like San Antonio's done, where they could not win a game because they didn't have any point guards. I think that they would have benefited from bringing in a point guard. And they could have got Tyus Jones instead of Malik Beasley. But I guess they just want the ball in Cade's hands all the time.
So that brings me to a follow-up question now that you brought up the Spurs. I do feel like the Spurs are much improved, getting that point guard. I do believe Chris Paul still has more left in him. I also would not be surprised if Chris Paul got cut loose, in February, so that way he'd go sign with a contender. That just feels like a wink, wink, nod, nod deal to me. Who will win more games? Not who's better, because I think the Spurs are a better team. But the Spurs play 50 games of the Western Conference. The Pistons play in the same conference with the Nets, who are clearly tanking, the Wizards, who are clearly tanking, the Hornets, who are fine, but I don't expect to be good. They'll be better if LaMelo is healthy. But they got more bad teams. Who will win more games, the Pistons or the Spurs?
Still the Spurs.
Damn it.
The post-trade deadline, just for a point of delineation, the Spurs got up to negative 3.3 net rating, which is 22nd in the league.
-3.
Yeah. So, which is 22nd in the league. And so it's better than the likes of Brooklyn, better than Utah, better than Detroit, Washington, Charlotte, Memphis, Portland, Toronto. You'd expect Memphis to move up, Charlotte to move up a little bit, Detroit to move up a little bit, but maybe Chicago to move down. Atlanta can always move down as well. And so I think that is about the spot for San Antonio is like the 22nd best team in the league.
Okay. Can we take just a moment and touch on what the fuck is Washington doing?
Oh, man. Yeah, they this time a year ago, they were being criticized by NBA Twitter and praised by me because they were finally doing the right thing and just going all in on tanking. They brought in Michael Winger from the Clippers, a really good executive, to run their rebuild, and finally got approval from ownership to do a proper rebuild. And then they come out this year and for some reason decide to sign more veterans to get better, I guess. Like, I don't know what the thinking is.
If we just look at their roster, they have like if you wanted to go with a veteran heavy lineup, you could go a starting five of Tyus Jones, Malcolm Brogdon, Sadiq Bey, who at this point you've moved teams twice. You're a veteran. You've seen the league. Kyle Kuzma and Jonas Valanciunas. That is an uninspiring team. I mean, you got Valanciunas dirt cheap. I don't understand why.
I don't know why though. Yeah, it's one of those moves that same with Sadiq Bey. It's like one of those moves that you hate for the team and also for the player. It's like, no, you can like play on an NBA team. Don't like go and sign for the Wizards to be absolutely awful. Same with Valanciunas. Like, I mean, I guess it's the only team that he could have made that kind of money. But like, man, why are you wasting your the rest of your prime playing for the freaking Wizards?
And like, I mean, they drafted Sar, so is Valanciunas just there to back up Sar and spell him? Why would you do that if you're Valanciunas?
Well, I imagine they're gonna go the Wimby route and play Sar at the 4 and Valanciunas is the freaking what's his name?
Zach Collins.
Zach Collins, yeah. They're gonna have Valanciunas as the Zach Collins to make his life easier, but also make the team worse.
So at that point, you're sliding. And Kuzma is now your 3 as opposed to your 4. Is Bilal gonna play? Like, I don't know why you just don't get rid of more of these players. And like, I like having some veteran pieces around to teach the young guys. I think Valanciunas as a teacher is good. Brogdon as a teacher is good. But Jordan Poole, I think you probably can't trade him at this point just because of how rough that season was. You got to rehab that value a little bit. But I try to move him. I try to move Kuzma, and I'd really try to give the young guys a lot of time. And I would tank so freaking hard for Cooper Flag. Like,
exactly. Like you finally you finally got a good draft, with a guy who I think you were just gonna say is showing out Team USA in scrimmages.
Mm-hmm.
And instead of tanking or developing these guys, like they had a pretty decent draft. Kaishawn George, Bob Carrington, as well as um,
Sorry.
Sar. And then they've still got Koulibaly, who has a lot of upside as well. A lot of those guys are going to get minimized because you're playing freaking Sadiq Bey and Corey Kispert and Jonas Valanciunas and Malcolm Brogdon and Tyus Jones are on this team. Like maybe they can trade those guys and get some second round picks in return. Is that the goal? Like Malcolm Brogdon and Tyus Jones are accidentally going to win you like 3 more games and ruin your draft stock.
You know who won't ruin their draft stock?
Bob Carrington, running point guard. Do that.
The ads and services brought to you by this podcast. We don't have ads and services, but that would have been a great time to cut to ads.
Do you think it's that we could have legal action if we just did fake ads, but in a sort of a mocking way? We're like, this show is brought to you by. This ad is brought to you by so and so for only. Oh man, that's actually really expensive. Oh, this thing's actually kind of a piece of shit. If you want to buy one of these pieces of shit, go to this website.
Yes, I do think that legal action could be taken against us
for pretending to do ads and then shitting on the products.
Yes. I do feel like somewhere out there could be a lawsuit. I don't think we're popular enough. The fact that there are like 300 people that subscribe and listen to this podcast still amazes me. I love every one of you guys out there, but
is one of them an ad salesman just waiting in case we defame any products?
I don't know, but if you are an ad salesman, hoopstemple@gmail.com. Hit us up. Talk to us about what ads you'd like us to sell. We have like 300 followers. It's not much in the grand scheme of podcasting, but for 2 random dudes who just to love the NBA, or 3 random dudes if you want to count Aaron, I don't know. It's not bad. It's not shabby. I'll take it.
And not to mention, we had a diverse customer base. Like 5 of those subscribers are women.
No. It's like 2. and I know one of them, and we text about the pod all the time, but no, we do not do well with female audiences at this point. I blame the mustaches. Come on, gentlemen.
I was going to say the opposite. I think it's because the people that are listening to podcasts, they don't get the video feed. They don't see these 2 beautiful mustached or 3 beautiful mustached men.
I think you can hear it. I think it comes through in the audio file. I think you listen to this guy and you're like, oh, fuck, this guy definitely has a mustache.
They're like, this guy's a mustache and he's fucking hot just by his voice.
Yeah.
This guy's a mustache. Yeah. This guy fucks. I can tell.
Yes. Until I think at this point we've devolved way beyond our usual in these podcasts, which is saying something even for us. You got any pluggables that you wish to plug? Any Letterbox or chess.com accounts?
I haven't played chess in months. I got to get back into it actually. On my
streak right now.
Yeah, I got to get back into it. I stopped playing for a couple months and I went back to it and I was like, I've already forgotten like every single opening that I knew. Like I don't know any openings or counter openings anymore. It was not like riding a bicycle. It was all gone. And so I got to get back into that. The Letterbox still going strong. I'm up to 112 movies this year.
Damn.
I'm churning through them. But nah, it's good. It's good. Go ahead, Nate. Give us your plugs and sell us an ad for a piece of shit product.
Well, what's not a piece of shit product is my matrix ranking every NBA player. And I do just want to say, this is a little bit like doing BMI rankings, is body mass index. It does a really good job of ranking a lot of people into relatively good ballparks. But yeah, you're going to disagree with a lot of the guys. There are some just swings and misses on people whose value cannot be shown on statistical matrices. But it does a great job. It's available on our Patreon, link in bio now. It also, if you just want to message me, donation of your choice, happy to send it to you for like 39 cents if that's all you think it's worth. It's a lot more on Patreon. I just put a bulk price out there for it, but check it out. Email us hoopstemple@gmail.com. Follow me on TikTok, Nate_hoopstemple. Love to hear from you guys, and we'll catch you later.